So Bitcoin on our daily time frame still technically in a bullish market structure. So when we're looking at this, the correct analysis, in my opinion, would be to not focus on the trends so much and to more so focus just on the levels that are worth taking note of. And that's just obviously our range lows here at 30K and our range highs at 41K. And so within that, we can say what's the highest probability scenario? Is it range highs or is it range lows? So on the bigger scale of things, on our daily time frame, we're still technically bullish. We're still technically holding this structure of higher lows, right? And this is still technically a higher low and higher highs. So we have an uptrend within the overall range that is you buy 30K, you sell 41K. You buy 30K, you sell 41K, right? Over and over and over again. Our lower time frames are really what we want to pay attention to tell us, are we likely to break this daily structure, this uptrend on our daily time frame and head back down to these 30K range lows once again, or are we likely to continue the uptrend eventually into this range high, right? And from that, we're just getting what we expected for the past month and a half, the exact same thing that we've been expecting, which is you buy range lows and you sell range high, and that is it, right? Previously, about a week ago, I discussed how this context is much different than a lot of the other price action. And the reason being because we tested the range lows consecutively, right, in succession within a couple days of each other after not having seen range highs for the first time. So this is the first time that range lows are getting bashed without seeing some sort of move up to range highs prior to that, right? And then on top of that, you have the fact that not only was it tested before seeing range highs, you have the fact that it was tested consecutively, right? So people are selling. There's a bunch of sell pressure into limit buys. People are willing to buy range lows. So it makes sense that there would be limit buyers in that area. And then without even having enough time to fully replenish all of those buys, we see it tested once again within the next couple days or so, right? And it still held up. The limit buyers, they managed and they held a higher low, and then from that higher low they shifted us upwards into a higher high, and now we have an uptrend. So are we going to continue the uptrend? Are we going to see range lows once again? And personally, I'm under the impression that if we keep bashing away at range lows, then eventually range lows are going to break, right? That's where it starts to become this sort of like complacency looking chart where we're all of a sudden just testing range lows over and over and over again. Whereas prior, it was you either bought when things were scariest and the chart was the ugliest near these range lows, and you looked like a genius because you got to sell at range highs immediately after, or you didn't and you missed out entirely. Right? You didn't get to buy 30K. You didn't get one, two, three, four tests all within a week or 2 weeks, and price action consistently trading around 30K for multiple 4 hour candles and things like that. It was you either got in or you didn't. It was 30K gets defended, people step in, we buy, we push it back up to range highs, and we offload ourselves there. And if it starts to become anyone and everyone who wants to buy 30K, here you go, then it's likely going to turn into acceptance. It's likely going to turn into some sort of complacency where you go from all right, get the fuck out of here, bears, you're over exaggerated, right? You're a little overextended, you're getting carried away, like back off a little bit. We're going to push this back up to range highs. Right? And then the next time you come down, it's the exact same thing. Well, we're just going to buy range lows again, bears. Like you're getting carried away, right? You see range highs again. You come down the third time, same exact result. You come down the fourth time, and now all of a sudden it starts to become, guys, we're gonna buy range lows, right? Guys, guys, everyone's just going to buy 30K, right? And then all of a sudden we start trading within our previous strong demand zone, which you either got in or you didn't. And now we're trading throughout it. And then we start trading below it, right? So that's the acceptance. So if we see that, it's going to get scary. It's going to get ugly. We're still technically bullish on our daily time frame, but as I said, these lower time frames are probably our best bet uh, to determine what's likely to happen next. Are we in search for our range lows, or do we continue the higher time frame uptrend? Do we continue this journey up into our range highs as we've gotten accustomed to for the past month and a half, right? So let's zoom in. So now we see our 4 hour chart, and anyone who's been in signal profits for any of this bull run, really, you know how much I love these 4 hour 200s. The 4 hour 200s have consistently been local bottoms for the majority of this uptrend. And even prior to that, they're nicely respected. Right? So you have local bottoms, and then for September and a little bit of October, we have them acting as local tops. And then from October on, all the way up into our high of the year, our all time high, they've consistently been local bottoms. Local bottoms, right? Into a new all time high. So during the bull market, we said it's kind of speculative to assume that some sort of crazy breakdown is going to happen unless you break down below the 4 hour 200s, right? Once you manage to do that, this time's different. And we got that. We break down below the 4 hour 200s, we back test them as strong resistance now, and we see a big move down from that, right? We come up. This is sort of like chop. Some people are complacent. Some people are adamant on the bull market continuing. No one really knows what's happening. So we get this chop throughout our 4 hour 200s. And eventually this chop resolves towards the downside. And then we see that liquidation cascade and the higher time frame downtrend. If you were here for all of that, then you know what I'm talking about, right? Then you get that. And now here we are. We back test our 4 hour 200s. They give us a macro top, right? We back test them again. They give us a local top. So the 4 hour 200 MAs are really key for price action and what's probable on a higher time frame outlook. So reclaiming them is probably very significant. So to me, that's really where the bullish arguments quickly pile in. Once you reclaim the 4 hour 200s, once you reclaim the exact same dynamic levels that have consistently been macro bottoms and locals to macro tops for the past year, for the past bull market, that's when things change. That's when all of a sudden your bullish narratives, your quick bounce up to 47K, maybe a extended bounce to 52K, maybe all the way up to 59K, maybe a resumption of an entire bull market, right? All of those things are all of a sudden worth discussing. All of those things are now significantly more probable once you manage to reclaim the 4 hour 200s. And it's not necessarily that reclaiming these moving averages means that we're going to do all of those things, but it means if we are going to do all of those things, we have to reclaim the 4 hour 200s prior to that. So you give yourself an edge in terms of probabilities just by waiting for this key level, this huge level that has consistently been macro indicators. Just by waiting for that level to get reclaimed, you give yourself an edge. So until then, and we said this prior to the move upwards, and we're going to say it here after the move upwards and the rejection from these moving averages. Until then, anticipate them to continue being resistance. The market update on June 29th was literally labeled resistance is resistance. Respect it as such. They're going to keep giving you resistance until they don't, right? Until you manage to reclaim them. Then things shift. Then the sentiment changes. Then probabilities change. Then you could possibly see a bigger move up into our range highs, and that's where it seems obvious that that daily market structure, that daily uptrend that we're currently holding on to for dear life is the correct analysis to be making, right? And then we're likely to head up into our range highs along with those 200 daily moving averages at 41K once again. And then we reclaim those, and all of a sudden we're breaking out of a 2 month long range, and now 47K looks extremely probable, right? And then we break above that, and then 52K, and then above that, and 59K, and so on and so forth, until all of a sudden you're you're in this new bull market, right? You're creating new all-time highs again. So that's the step ladder. That's the process that it has to take if that's the route price action is going to take. So waiting for that to happen gives you an edge. Until then, we're going to expect similar results from any and every single test, right? Currently, our 4-hour market structure has been broken bearishly, and you could even argue that it's fully bearish, right? Personally, I see this as it's broken, and the way that I'm assessing this market structure is low, high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then I see this as all one down move. So I see this as a break in the structure in the form of a lower low, right? You could argue and say that we got low, lower high, lower low, and that we're already confirmed downtrending on the 4-hour. It's up to interpretation, it's up to how you want to see it, but this is the way that I see it. I see it lower low, and we're still pending a lower high. So if we cross below these lows, then whatever high we made prior to that is going to be our lower high, and we're going to work from there. So market structure, your uptrend on the 4-hour has been broken. And prior to this, we discussed as long as we're still uptrending on the 4-hour, there's always going to be the chance that we break out and above these 4-hour 200s altogether, right? There's always going to be that chance. But if our 4-hour is downtrending, it's a very low probability. It's more likely to assume that a bigger breakdown is going to happen, right? And on top of that, our 4-hour demand zone at 33.7K, we're now trading below it and it's acting as resistance. So we've lost a key demand zone, and there's not much stopping us from heading down to this 30K demand zone, our range lows once again. So things are not looking too great, right? And then when you zoom into the hourly, it only adds to that idea. It doesn't really give you new information to work with. It kind of only goes hand in hand with what our 4-hour has already told us. So the hourly 200 MAs, you guys know how much I love these as well. They're consistently like local bottoms and local tops intraday. So the price action that you can't see on that 4-hour, very often you can justify it by zooming into this hourly, and you can see how well these moving averages get respected on the hourly time frame as well. So consistent local top, local top, local top, local top. We break out above, local bottom, right? We break down below, local top, and look where they are. They are perfectly in confluence with this 33.7K previously demand zone, currently acting as supply, right? So if we continue the breakdown, it makes sense. It is we broke down below key levels. We're now bearish retesting them. We failed to reclaim them on those bearish retests. We fall lower. We continue the 4-hour market structure. And if we do all that, what's really stopping us from seeing these range lows at 30K once again? I would say probably not much, right? So then if we see 30K range lows once again, it starts to look like complacency. Maybe it holds up again, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's not complacency. Maybe we find a higher low somewhere higher on the daily, anywhere in between this like void where I don't have any sort of demand zone or anything drawn. I don't really, I can't justify or create any sort of logic around that price action. But maybe we find a higher low, maybe we just continue the uptrend. Who knows? But the probability of us seeing this demand zone has now skyrocketed. Seeing that 30K demand zone tested once again has now skyrocketed with this price action. Prior to when you're above all these key levels and you're holding an uptrend, you're holding higher highs, higher lows up into these 4-hour 200s, up into the pivot level, up into key resistance, and you're uptrending. Now that you've broken a lot of those arguments and you've lost some key levels, you're now eyes locked into this 30K daily demand, right? That's really where I'm at. And so the only thing that I really would say negates this argument is the fact that the longer this range goes on, the more and more illogical price action is going to be. So if we pull out this fixed range volume profile, and all this does, it tells you where the volume has been traded at which price. So previously, when we drew this volume profile, it did not look anything like this. It was, we had a key level here, right? That volume spike was there. I think we had one here, and we had a little bit of down here, and then we had some down or up here. The longer that this range goes on, the more jumbled that this volume is going to be, which means the range no longer has these like key pivot levels. It's no longer like, here's your daily demand range lows, here's like 25% of the range, here's mid range, here's 75% of the range, here's range highs. It's now becoming, this is all just jumbled. It's all just a cluster of, we've been trading in this region for so long, for over 2 months now, or almost 2 months now, right? That everyone and anyone and everyone has now gotten to trade at whatever price that they wanted to trade at. So now things get a lot choppier towards the end side of the range. So that's what I'm holding on to. If you are still bullish for this lower time frame price action, I'm talking about maybe just in the next couple days or so, we see 30Ks again. If you're still bullish, then that's your argument, I would say. And to go along with that, um, I wouldn't be too surprised if we got something similar to what we saw back here on June 12th, June 13th, where it's very reminiscent. It's um, very similar to today's price action that we're currently seeing. And it's not in the fact that we're fractal traders all of a sudden. It's nothing like that. It's just, we had this key level, our pivot level. That's that 37K supply zone. And we have our hourly 200 MAs that were giving us support into this key level, right? Then we break down from those. So now we have broken and even confirmed our 4-hour market structure bearishly. And so 33.7K looks like it is in sights, right? That makes sense. You're taking it level by level. The range has these very key and very clear levels to work with. And you broke down, you lost your trend, and you're bearish retesting the exact same thing that was just giving you support 2 days ago, right? And finding resistance off of it and seeing strong sell offs occur from bearish retesting that same exact level. And then all of a sudden, this consolidation below resistance is fuel for a much bigger breakout. So there is that. There is that argument. It is speculative right here, right now. It makes more sense here now, just like it made more sense on June 12th, June 13th, to anticipate the breakdown because it's logical and then adjust if you get a breakout, right? If you break out, if you reclaim all of these levels, what does that mean? That means your 4-hour has now finally ended its lower low. You're either going to find a lower high, probably at your 4-hour 200s, which are doing this, Probably going to see a lower high, if not a full on reclaim of your 4 hour 200s and a higher high to continue that daily market structure, right? So you can take it level by level. It makes more sense, and I would have argued the exact same thing here, word for word, and I would have been wrong. And we reclaim, get a small little retest, and off to the races, right? That huge hourly candle directly into resistance, and then that resistance just doesn't hold up. It just gives way, and we just keep going, right? So could possibly see the same exact thing here, but the same exact mentality here is the same exact mentality that I will be applying to this current price action. If we get that breakout, it could mean our daily found that higher low, could mean our 4 hour has ended that lower low, and now we're going to either find a lower high or a higher high to completely invalidate that 4 hour bearish break in structure, or we're just going to continue upwards and reclaim 4 hour 200s, and now the journey to range highs is in play, right? So that's where you can kind of play things. So for now, I am bearish expecting 30K daily demand, just like I was bearish expecting 33.7K demand in this price action. Right? I will quickly adjust if things change, if strength is shown. And remember, strength is not how high price bounces, it is not the length of a wick, right? Strength is, are you flipping trend and are you reclaiming levels? If we manage to show strength, then probabilities change. Then you can look for scalp longs into those 4 hour 200s. Then you can look for swing long into range highs again. Then you can look for the reclaim of the 4 hour 200s might mean range highs, but it probably means 47K at the very least, right? Those kinds of things. But for now, um, what we're expecting, I don't expect any of that. I'm just ready for if it happens. All right, so not sure how many people are in here right now. Not even sure. We're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna move on to ETH USD. All right, ETH USD, kind of similar price action. Also bullish market structure on our daily time frame. So that's what you want to see. So higher low is actually implied, and just for that reason alone, the ETH USD chart looks a little bit cleaner than Bitcoin. We're not stuck in a range. We were stuck in a downtrend, and now we're uptrending. So the current daily candle for ETH USD came down to these 200 daily moving averages and nearly came down to this 1980 demand zone. And I would assume that if we're going to find a higher low, that's the place to do it, right? If we lose that region, then where do we find a higher low somewhere higher than 1915 when your other daily demand is at, I'm sorry, 1915, 1715, and your other daily demand beneath this region is 1740-ish, right? So where do you find a higher low if not here at this cluster of confluence in major support? So that's my question to you. And my answer would be, if we don't find a higher low somewhere in this cluster of support, we're probably not going to find a higher low. We're probably going to fully break down and then continue and break our structure bearishly and continue that downtrend level by level, daily demand, daily demand, daily demand, daily demand, right? Until it just eventually stops and we manage to flip the structure bullishly once again. So that's what I'm looking at for ETH USD on the daily time frame. And when we zoom in, very, very key analysis. This is going to sound like I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but for anyone who doesn't know, the 4 hour 200 moving averages are probably even more key for ETH USD than it is for Bitcoin. And you guys know how much I love those 4 hour 200s for Bitcoin. So ETH USD, since the March COVID drop, consistent local bottoms. I'm sorry, not even local, macro. Macro bottoms into new all time highs. over and over and over again. And when they're lost, we see them act as local tops, right? So this simple analysis is if you're still below these 4-hour 200s, they have the chance to act as a potential macro top just as they've been doing for the past 2 months or so, and just as they've been acting as macro bottoms for the past year or so. It is that simple, really. I can't stress that enough. In order to see whatever bullish narrative that you want, maybe you just want a push upwards into 3,200 daily supply. Maybe you want ETH flippening and a whole new bull market. Whatever it may be, you have to reclaim the 4-hour 200s, the exact same key level that has been giving you local bottoms, local tops for the past year. You have to reclaim those in order to do any of those things. So as long as you're still below them, there's always going to be the chance that you break structure, that the bounce was just merely a pity bounce and that's it. And everything that is telling you bullish is a fluke and it's a lie. And your 4-hour 200s hold up as a macro top and they break all of what you worked so hard for to create on the way up into them. So that's exactly what we're seeing now. We had that bullish market structure on our daily. We formed a bullish market structure on our 4-hour, and we talked about this. Look for the 4-hour 200s to act as very strong resistance, and they did. Nearly get tested, and they break our structure, right? That uptrend that we worked so hard to create from 1715 all the way up into 2280 into our 4-hour 200s. All of a sudden, we test those, and now that structure gets broken. We've now formed a lower low. So all we need is a lower high, somewhere lower than 2280, and we are confirmed that our 4-hour is downtrending now. So it really is that simple. So you have a sort of crossroads here. Your 4-hour 200s are macro top and bottom indicators consistently. You tested them. Your 200 daily moving averages, along with this daily demand zone, you're squeezed in between these two major regions right here, right now, right? With your 200 dailies doing this. So if our higher time frame trend, if that daily bullish market structure is going to put its foot down and push us back bullish again, push all these lower time frames back bullish again, right? Reclaiming 2140, then we head up into the 4-hour 200s again. Do we break and reclaim the 4-hour 200s and then continue that breakout, continue the higher high and higher low uptrend on every single time frame now? Or do we just break below this region and our higher time frame also gives way, and now every single time frame is either broken bearishly or confirmed bearishly, right? As far as trends and momentum. So you're at a crossroads. It's either going to be your lower time frame leaks up into your higher time frames and also breaks those bearishly, or your higher time frame uptrend puts its foot down, holds its ground, and flips all of these lower time frames, flips the 4-hour 200s back bullish again. And then we can take it from there. So if you were going to make that higher time frame bet, this is the place to make it. If you are looking to sell out of ETH USD and assume that the higher time frames are also going to give way, this was the place to make it, right? Whatever happens next, probably going to determine what happens for the next couple weeks, maybe a few months, who knows. We'll take it from there. Moving on, ETH BTC. ETH BTC also really interesting. Just had a break in structure the way that I see it. So we're going to say market structure for ETH BTC is lower low, lower high, lower low. And then we had weekly demand zone nearly tested. right? So this is more like a weekly demand. So we got that weekly demand zone tested, and we break our structure bullishly in the form of a higher high for ETH BTC. So that's a great argument there, right? You've broken your downtrend. You got to zoom in because these moves are so volatile and pretty exaggerated without really any sort of relief in the meantime. So, like our daily broke down in the form of a lower low, just straight up, and immediately gave us this negative 22% drop, right? That lower low gets confirmed here. This is the lower low. And then you just continue another 10% from there. So, very, very exaggerated, very drawn out trends. So, you have to zoom in if you want to be riding this price action in the meantime. These higher time frame analysis, unless you're just looking at this is weekly demand, this is weekly supply, the higher time frame analysis probably not going to help you too much. So you got to zoom in. So now we're looking at the 4 hour. In the 4 hour chart, ETH BTC does like these 4 hour 200s. It's not anything crazy notable like Bitcoin or ETH USD, but it is notable. They do consistently hold up as support and resistance. They are pretty solid. And that's not just for ETH BTC, that's kind of just in general. The 200 moving averages are very frequently used. So we saw 200 moving averages hold up as support a couple times, right? 2 or 3 times, hold up as resistance when it was back tested about a month ago, and hold up as resistance when it was back tested 2 days ago, right? So here, this is not the time to be making bets, I wouldn't say, for ETH BTC at least. I would want to see a full on reclaim of this region entirely, and then we can look for that zero point zero 0.07 supply zone. So really not the time to be making any sort of bets. I wouldn't say we're at resistance. We're kind of trading below and above this 4 hour. Is it demand? Is it currently supply? Who knows? We're kind of just trading throughout it. So there's not too much of an analysis to make here. We bearish retested this level. We're still holding an uptrend on this 4 hour time frame. So for all we know, the daily's higher high could just continue in the form of this 4 hour uptrend just holding and continuing the trend. So, um, on the flip side of that, these 4 hour 200s could hold up as very strong resistance, just as they did back here. And we see them break this 4 hour structure. And now we begin our search for that higher low on the daily to fully confirm a daily uptrend. And that higher low just needs to be somewhere higher than this low at 0.055. So just like the ETH USD pair, for the ETH BTC pair, you're kind of pinched in between some key levels and some key regions that are likely going to tell you what happens a week from now or so. So it's really not the time to be making that sort of bet or any sort of trades unless you're just scalping. Right, and we talked about this too. We talked about frequently. While this was downtrending, while it looked extremely ugly, so we're not looking at any of this price action where now we're bullish trending. We talked about all of this price action where you have a confirmed downtrend and your daily just broke that uptrending structure. You don't know where the higher low is going to get put in. So it kind of just makes sense to be a buyer at places where it makes sense to be a buyer. It kind of just makes more sense to take a step back and say, okay, this is weekly demand, 0.05 ish region. So I'm going to buy there. I'm going to allocate a little bit of a spot or whatever of my BTC holdings and flip it into ETH holdings at this weekly demand zone. And then if we break that weekly demand zone, you can say, all right, well, next major demand is 0.047, and I'm just going to allocate a little bit of spot into ETH. Maybe buy some ETH through USD and hope that it outperforms, or maybe flip some BTC into ETH now at at the 200 daily moving averages, as well as our next daily demand zone after breaking down from this weekly demand. And during that whole process, you're not expecting this, right? You're not expecting the strength to show. You're just hoping that it does show. You're expecting the downtrend to continue, but you're allocating and exposing yourself slowly at places where it makes sense to do that. So I personally didn't see any way to trade this, right? Sometimes there's just no way to trade things. Sometimes it's very difficult. You break your 4-hour structure here, all of a sudden you have a break in this downtrend on your 4-hour time frame. You see that continue, and then you don't get a higher low until here, right? So exact same thing if you're trading the daily time frame, your higher high structure break was here. You got a little bit of a move up into these 4-hour 200 MA, and then that rejected you, and now you're looking for, does the higher high continue and this uptrend holds, right? Higher lows, higher highs on the 4-hour. Does that continue, or does it break and now you're looking for your higher low on the daily? So it's difficult to trade something that reacted the way that it did, and it's not changed. It's still difficult. Now you're still at some key levels and you're still waiting on some sort of answer to what's going to happen next. Whereas, and the point that I'm trying to make is it's difficult to trade this unless you were that person who took that little bit of a risk by buying at this major weekly demand zone prior to the strength actually showing. You took the risk of, I'm going to expose myself to something that looks awful, but if we were going to reverse, this makes sense for it to be a place where it would reverse from. And you either got in through that mentality, or you weren't willing to approach with that mentality, and you probably missed a lot of this move, if not all of it. So we've been saying this, we were saying this all the way down. It just so happened to work out at this weekly demand zone. Anyone who listened to that analysis and decided that that was the mentality that they wanted to take, good for you. You probably feel like a genius right now. Right. BTC dominance. But BTC dominance still scary to me. Still not fully convinced that anything has changed from my prior analysis earlier this week or Friday of last week. Really not too convinced because our daily is still uptrending and our 4-hour is still uptrending and our 4-hour is still holding those 4-hour 200 moving averages. So that's really what we're going to talk about for dominance, and everything else is kind of just noise to me, and it's not really anything too special. So the main thing that I'm focused on for dominance are these 4-hour 200s. When we turn the price action off, you don't even need the price action at all, right? We can discuss probabilities in terms of momentum just based off of these moving averages. Don't even need price action. What's the probability that BTC dominance sees a massive spike upwards very quickly if your momentum is very strongly pointed towards the downside? I would assume it's not very likely, right? The probabilities of something like that happening are low, I would think, right? All of a sudden, you start to flatten out this momentum. That probably means that price action is either chopping throughout or consolidating below or consolidating above, right? So now what's the probabilities? Even though it's not technically 50-50, nothing's ever 50-50. And how do we know if something's 50-50 or not? Anyways, no one does. But I would assume it's probably pretty 50-50, right? Whether we go up or whether we go down, I really don't see an argument too heavy towards either side as far as momentum. And so probability wise, I'm not going to favor either side because my momentum doesn't favor either side. So then from this neutral, from this 50-50 probability, we get a spike upwards. So now we have uptrending momentum. So now what's the probability of dominance just strongly breaking down when our momentum is pointed towards the upside? I would think it's probably not very likely, right? Same exact thing. neutral momentum, and from this was continuation. We get uptrending momentum from there once again, just as we had here. So same exact sort of mentality. I'm assuming probabilities that we break down very strongly are very slim, and then we do, and now we have a bunch of downtrending momentum. So during all of this price action, we were the ones screaming, all the doomsday callers, all the people saying that we need to capitulate our altcoins. Sorry, I could not say that. All those people calling for doomsday, saying that people buying altcoins are idiots. Altcoins are going to capitulate. Bitcoin is king. Blah blah blah. Whatever they're saying for all of these 4 months, they are very likely to be wrong because the trend, the momentum, the probabilities, because of the trend and momentum, are all very strongly against them. So it's a slim chance that they're going to be right. So when that happens, we approach with the mentality that we don't want to be the doomsday caller. We don't want to side with the person who has a low probability to be right. We would rather take some profit at areas where it makes sense to take profit. Right, so we said 58 when dominance hits 58. We said 52 when dominance comes down to 52. That another support level. 59, all the way down 44, and then 40, and then continue below that. And dominance is likely to see all-time lows again, so on and so forth. You don't want to be the doomsday caller. You want to stay on the side of probabilities. You want to stay on the side of what the momentum is doing, what the trend is, and just sort of prepare yourself for if doomsday does happen. And someone who really put this into context extremely well for me and made it click was Willy Woo. And Willy Woo is an on-chain analyst, and he was discussing Bitcoin. And he discussed the March COVID drop, that whole capitulation where the whole crypto market basically sold off 50 or 60% in the course of a couple days, right? So he was discussing, people are calling this a black swan event. Does it make sense to call it a black swan? And his thought was no, it doesn't. If something happens consistently, not consistently, but frequently over time, if it happens every couple of years or so, or every 100 years or so, does it really make sense to call it a black swan? It's more of a white swan. You should expect it, even though it doesn't occur consistently or frequently, but it occurs enough over the course of time. So, Bitcoin, while Bitcoin dropping 50 or 60% is definitely not something that we see every day, we dropped 50 or 60% just this year, right? So is that a black swan? If it happens every single year, it's happened in 2019, it's happened in 2020, it's happened in 21. So I would assume it's probably going to happen in 2022 and 2023 and so on and so forth. It happens. So it makes more sense to be the person who is not necessarily expecting these crazy things, but it makes more sense to expect the trend to remain the trend and be prepared for if the doomsday, if the white swan does show itself. And that's the exact mentality that we had for all of these 4 months, right? And that mentality helped my portfolio, and anyone in SP, it probably helped your portfolio too, right? Just exposing yourself to these altcoins, knowing that new all-time highs on those altcoins was actually likely and consistent and probable, and then slowly de-risking for if the doomsday does occur. This is doomsday to me. The exact same mentality. Literally, copy and paste. Just inverse. I'm applying that mentality here now that we are uptrending, and it's copy and pasted the exact same mentality that I had for all of these 4 months, where I look like a genius just for not going against the trend. That's all I did. I just assumed that the trend was going to remain the trend, and I slowly de-risked and unexposed myself along the way, preparing for some sort of doomsday if it does happen. Right? But I'm making sure that if doomsday never comes, then I'm just going to continue looking like a genius. And that's it. And that outperformed all of the people trying to guess this is the bottom. This is the bottom. This is the bottom. This is the bottom. This is where doomsday comes. This is where doomsday comes. This is where doomsday comes, right? That outperformed. So literally, I can't express it enough. The exact same mentality that I had when dominance was going down for the past 4 months is the exact same mentality that I have here now, just inverse. It's either going to be wrong and we flip back over again. Maybe these go neutral, maybe we lose them, and then they curl downwards. And I will say, okay, well, the doomsday mentality got me, put me safe for about here, and then I'm gonna hop back in and ride the wave here. And now we are downtrending again. Now every single time frame is confluently bearish, and it looks like dominance is gonna come down to 44. I'm sorry, dominance is gonna come down to 40 again, and then if we lose 40, then we probably see new all-time lows for dominance. I'll jump back in on the wave when that happens, right? But as long as the strength continues to be strength, just like the weakness continued to be weakness, I'm going to stay away from altcoins. I am scared of altcoins. That's it. It's the word for word, copy and paste, just inverse, exact same mentality. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, we adjust. And that's it. All right. So that's me rambling. That's everything that I feel needs to be discussed in the market. Is there anything that you guys want to see? Not too many people in here. I'm guessing just because it's Friday and everyone's getting ready for 4th of July weekend. If you're celebrating, if you're American, maybe just celebrate anyways if you're not American. Why not? All right. Well, there's only 5 of you in here, so if you 5 don't want anything from me, then we'll go ahead and get out of here. I guess it's a case of don't go long until the 4-hour 200s are broken. That's my mentality, man. Until I see this change, then I'm really not interested in altcoins at all. Just like the opportunity cost of not being interested in altcoins for all of this was scary, right? Not being interested in altcoins was scary because we're consistently finding local tops, we're downtrending, we're breaking key levels, every single time frame is confluently bearish, blah, 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 right? All of those arguments kick in, and it's scary to not be exposed to altcoins. So now that everything that we were saying for the past 4 months is now inverse and towards the bullish side, it's the exact same mentality, but it's now exposing yourself to altcoins is scary to me. So yeah, it really is just a case of do they break or does the trend continue to be the trend? All right. You 5, thank you for coming out. Thank you for not letting me just talk to myself for 30 minutes because I thought it was just going to be me and I just record and then post it and get out of here. But I'm glad some guys came in, even on a Friday, just to hang out with me. So cool. Thanks. Have a great weekend. Yep. You too, buddy. I really appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much, as always. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you back again on Monday. All right. Take care, everyone.